What's good, ladies and gentlemen? If you could hear the sound of my voice, that means you are tuned into another episode of the Casual Friday podcast here on Knicks Film School, the Knicks Film School YouTube channel. I'm Jeff J. On the other side of the screen, that is Shawn with a W, and we are here to talk to you about the Knicks, the week that was, the week that is to be, and everything in between. So shout out first all to the chat. Shout out to everybody who joins us live. We are live at noon Eastern on a Friday. Shawn, happy Friday, man. How you feeling?
Happy Friday. I'm feeling good.
You sure?
Yes. You know why? Because what do I say all the time? Happiness equals reality minus expectations. And my expectations for this team have been tempered. Sunday was not a surprise. Wednesday against the Sixers was less of a surprise. Simply because we've seen this team, what's the word we like to use? Be unserious at times. Friday night actually bothered me more because I was like, all right, Boston is one thing. Cleveland put you in a spliff like the way they did. That was annoying. But I'm fine, man. I'll be all right.
Yeah, I feel good, man. I feel good. I don't think that while what happened over the weekend, and I love how we're just casually ignoring the fact that they beat they beat who was it they played? The Bulls, right? No, the Sixers. Might as well have been.
They played the Sixers Wednesday. They played the Sixers Wednesday. They played the Bulls first game out the break.
Right. They played the zombie. They played the zombie Sixers, and Jalen Brunson had to go Super Brunson 2 in order to win in the clutch, which was kind of annoying. But we're talking about, of course, the big discourse that's been going on about the Knicks, which is the fact that they are winless, 0-7 against who is considered the elite top 3 title contenders in the NBA. The Cavs, the Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And what's ill about it, Shawn, why I say I'm more annoyed than tempered with my expectations, because my expectation wasn't that this team was going to win a championship this year. I did expect the conference finals depending on how the seeding went. I didn't expect the Cavs. I had the Cavs as a top 3 seed. I didn't know the seed that they were going to occupy was number 1. So in my original actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I think I went Celtics, Cavs, Knicks, or Celtics, Knicks, Cavs, which meant a second round matchup with Cleveland, which is why I looked at it and said they should, given everything that they've done, I don't think it's unfair to expect an Eastern Conference final run, especially looking at the history of their team and what they've been doing from a few years ago to now. So I think that was a natural progression. The way the seedings worked and the way that they've looked against these other teams has definitely put a damper on it for me, but I'm not really doom and glooming with it. It's just a harsh reality that hits you when you evaluate this team. And I think that for me is more than anything that really put things in perspective.
Yeah. So I actually found your predictions because the great Angel Claudio compiled them all. You had Boston 1, Knicks 2, Milwaukee 3. I had Boston 1, Cleveland 2, Knicks 3. So, and I think we all did that figuring. I think we all kind of subconsciously did that. So we get Knicks, Boston in the conference final. So I think we all believed going into the season that they were the 2 best teams in the conference. Look, man, like I said in the beginning, happiness equals reality minus expectation. That's number 1. Number 2, I said this last night on the KFS Town Hall. If you missed the KFS Town Hall because you're not a patron, you are messing up. You should absolutely become a patron because you get to chit and chat with me and Andrew and John, and DJ was there last night, and all your favorite and Robert Cross used to pull up all the time. That's neither here nor there. But I was saying that this season, because a lot of talk about like last year's team was better and last year's team had this and that, yada, yada, yada. And I said, why are we crashing out over a team that's 38-20? And what I've realized is, and I said this last night on the town hall, when the Knicks lose, it's rarely the loss where they played well, they just didn't have it at the end. Like the first OKC game, right? It's really that. Like it seems as if, and this is not scientific, but it seems as if their losses can be put in one of two categories. One, they are half asleep, they're not serious, they're BSing around, and then next thing you know, they're down 19 to the Bulls, and they have to fight back. Or they play a team, and that team says, oh, this is the one thing that you're not good at, so we're going to keep making you do that one thing over and over again and make this whole thing crater. And, like, if you look – because, like, if you look at the – like, look at some of the – like, okay, we've spoken about OKC, like the second game at the Garden, ass kicked. We know what's happened to the Celtics. We saw what happened with Cleveland. When they play these switching teams switch everything, it's almost like we have no idea what to do. And I think optics of those losses really, really, really have us tightly wound and angry and upset. It's like it's one thing to lose, but it's like it's either we get embarrassed or we're not taking it seriously enough. And honestly, this fan base is tired of being embarrassed, and this fan base does not accept unseriousness. So now for me, I'm like, look, after the second Celtics game at home, I was like, yo, honestly, we can't beat this team, and they're gonna have to surprise me. So that's why going into Sunday, I was like, listen, just be competitive. That's it. And then they couldn't do that. But then again, when you're running dribble handoffs at the top of the key of pressures at you and Josh Hart, and Kristaps Porzingis is in the paint just laughing like that. You think I'm gonna come up there to contest that? Like, right. What do you do?
Yeah. You hit on some excellent points. Here's the thing for me. If you would have told me that the Knicks would be better than 86.7% of the league, and we still would be acting like this was the dog days of the early 21st century, I would have been mind boggled. But I think it's more so the fact that the fan base becomes demoralized when they're getting smacked on national TV. Now, I know my fan base, and I know my media narratives. If they were to have lost, the record would have still been the record. And it would be like, can they beat these teams? If they were all close losses or that the Knicks blew leads, then the narrative would be the Knicks cannot hold a lead. That's a way better narrative than you get your ass kicked every time you play the top three teams in the league. That's a way better narrative. It's almost like saying, yo, when these two fight, his older brother be beating his ass, but the younger brother leaves his mark. Like the older brother has a knot on his head. He got a scratch. He looks like he's been in a fight, but we know that the younger brother got his ass whooped. As opposed to, yo, you're going to have to wait until your growth spurt, bro. You have to wait until your growth spurt to even the playing field. And I think, and I can empathize with that. I can empathize with that understanding. But, and I'm going to get to my guy, GMAC Super Chat. I also say, while it is valid to criticize this team and for what they're not doing, while recognizing and appreciating what they are doing, it could always be worse. It could always be worse. You could be the Philadelphia 76ers who have to resort to leaking stories about, newsflash, the Knicks would have gave up a whole bunch of picks for Joel Embiid pre-knee turning into a pumpkin. Okay. Water is wet. We knew that Embiid was on the radar. But the fact is, they didn't do it. And you could be these dudes with that have almost $600 million dedicated to Paul George and Joel Embiid, and both of them have been dealing with injuries. Joel Embiid now, they're talking about breaking one part of his body to heal the other part of his body. Radical. Anything that has to do with radical and sports injuries, when they're talking about the solution, nah, it's not good. You could be And I'll just get to it because Andrew lays it out perfectly. Thank you, Andrew. Happy Friday, gent. Not in question because despite the outrage, we don't qualify here. 1,000%. Who is the most disappointing in the NBA this season? Phoenix, Dallas, Philly, Hoomps, right? And here's what I say. Here's what I say. You could be the Sixers. You could be the Suns, who went all in. And what do they have to show for it? Being about 3 games out of the final play-in spot, and completely tarnished their locker room with trade rumors, where pretty much everyone but Devin Booker has a trade target on their back. Like KD all but knows. If you read the reports and you see the language being spoken, you know, and he knows. End of the season, he's probably on the first thing smoking out of Phoenix, right? And Devin Booker is probably the most secure. But even now in this world, ain't nobody secure, because
anybody can
Dallas,
get it.
After they traded Luka, there is no more safe. There is no more non-negotiables. There are no more untradeable players. If Luka Doncic could be traded, anybody could be traded. So we'll get into that real quick. Shawn, who do you think is the most disappointing team in the league this season? Because if you listen to some people, you'd think it was the Knicks.
Yeah, Boogie Cousins talking about the Knicks are average. Yeah, you know exactly what average looks like, don't you, Boogie? But I digress.
Hey, we went to New York City public schools. If you got an 86.7 on the test, that ain't no C, bruh. Depending on your scoring, that could be a B+. Yes. Depending on your school, that's a B+, low A.
Yeah. I wanted to say Philadelphia, but then again, I'm also the person that's holding a ticket that I made for Philadelphia to miss the playoffs at plus 950, because I said, why would, is there a world where injured ass Embiid and injured ass Paul George are themselves? Phoenix, I never expected anything from Phoenix ever. Once they traded Bradley Beal, they were cooked. Dallas is disappointing just for different reasons, just out of sheer stupidity. Honestly, the team that I would say actually is the most disappointing in terms of where I thought they would be, and where they are now, is Minnesota. I didn't think they'd be 7th. Because I know, listen, you want to talk about narratives. The narrative that the West is this absolute gauntlet and a murderer's row of teams full of Hall of Famers up and down the line. There's two teams in the West that are legitimately win the title. They have a bunch of good teams. And I thought at the bare minimum, Minnesota would be one of those good teams that they're not. I will say this. I'm not disappointed by Orlando, because that's another team the narrative machine was hyping up, because I picked them to be 7th this year. And guess where they are, Jeff? 7th. But I would say, I would say Minnesota, but I can't fault you for picking Philly, because I didn't think they'd be this bad.
I had them at 6, I think. You had the street up. I think I had them in the top 6, or maybe 7th.
You had them 6.
Yep. I had them at 6.
And I had them 5.
Right. So I thought that the injury bug would hit, but they'd still have enough to stay afloat. Ha ha. Ha ha, Jeff. You got it wrong, right? So thank you, Andrew, for that. And that goes into the perspective, Shawn, of what this whole 0-7 thing means. And I've been hearing so many different narratives. I've been hearing it from the fans. I've been hearing it from the pundits. I've been hearing it from everyone else, but I didn't really hear it from the players like that. And that was until I tapped into the Roommates pod. Because low-key, I was like, I may not listen to the Roommates until they beat one of those teams. And then I'm like, I'm going to listen again. But of course, because of what we do, got to tap in to see if there's anything interesting. And I do got to give them props. I got to give them props because they set their show off talking about this. Let's get it out the way before we talk about our bullshit and snap on each other. We are going to discuss this elephant in the room that's ooping so loud your ears are bleeding, right? So I watched it. They spent about, I want to say about 10, 11 minutes talking about it. Did you see it, Shawn?
I saw most of it.
You saw most of it. All right, cool. So for those of y'all who didn't see it, I'm gonna give you some of the cliff notes and some of the things that I found interesting about it. So Hart, of course, was pretty even keel about it. He said this type of record could either be beneficial or it could break teams. And he felt like for the Knicks, it was more so the former. They would be able to learn from it and move on and be able to, take the lessons learned in them losses and be able to apply it and hopefully bounce back and be better for it. One thing that Brunson brought up that I thought was interesting, kind of in the back of my mind, but you would forgive everybody for even putting this into perspective based on how the last 3 games versus this competition has gone. Mm-hmm. The Cavs game, and I remember that because I was in the Garden on my birthday for it, they were up by double digits. And I'm gonna keep it real. It was one of those losses where the Cavs came back. They hit more shots than the Knicks. The Knicks didn't play a clean game, but it was competitive. Like the Knicks should have won that game. And we've had a trend of this team this season where they've been frittering away double-digit leads, like whatever. It's almost as if they want to challenge themselves to get into clutch time. Like I heard somebody make a joke about Brunson padded his clutch time stats. So they play these clutch games out of nowhere. It's like he's padding his clutch time stats, whatever. So he mentioned, I'm gonna get your take on it, that the first OKC game, they were up by double digits. The first Cavs game, they were up by double digits, and they just didn't close it out. So he felt like they were actually competitive. They know they have other than the Celtics where it has not been close. He brought up the run on Sunday where they cut it down to 4. So he says they have shown flashes of being competitive and they have everything they need. They just got to put it together. What do you think about that?
I think so. I'll give shout out to Doug B, who had said, in fact, he tweeted it. I'll read a tweet. He was like, there's been this thing about why NBA players podcasting and they should be in the gym and all that other garbage. And he said, counterpoint to the get in the gym take, at the risk of being called a company man, it's cool to hear players generally process what these games have been like. And I agree. It's actually refreshing to hear the players say, like, this is what happened. And this is how we're processing, and this is what we saw. This is what happened, right? Honestly, like this whole thing started because when they think about it, game 1 they got their ass whipped by the Celtics, but no one was jumping out the window. It was like, okay, this sucks, but it's game 1, whatever. We'll see them again, right? And like you said, when they played the Cavs the first time at the Garden, the game was competitive, and then they didn't close it out at the end. Then the OKC game happens, the one in Oklahoma City, and again they were up 8, and then they didn't close out, which is a trend. It wasn't this narrative or this consternation didn't really start until the second OKC game, which I don't remember. I think you were there. Me and Cedric were there, and by the second quarter when they're down like 20 something, and I was like, I think these guys are on bullshit tonight, and the game never got competitive. And then from that is when it was like, okay, that's kind of when it started about this team. That's interesting. And then the second Celtics game during the snowstorm, when they got destroyed, then it's like, okay, wait a minute. Now this is a thing. In regards to them, we cut the lead to 4. Man, runs happen every day, B. Runs happen in every NBA game every day, B. Like, teams will be up 20 and then go up 3. You hit a couple threes, whatever. Like, especially that Boston team that loves to scratch their ass in the third quarter. Like, I don't care that you went on because think about it. You had to go on a 35-13 run to get the lead to 4. How much energy did you have to expound to do that? Maybe if you expounded that energy in the beginning of the game, it wouldn't have happened. But then again, is it? And this is the question I ask you is like, Like some people, like they need to wake up. They need to have more energy. They need to play, or maybe it's just like schematically something's wrong, or I don't know if it's like they're not up for it. It's like they seem up for it. It's just that like, oh wait a minute, we let Jason Tatum walk into another wide open three because we're playing drop coverage with Cat, who's not getting to the level. Is it like, you know, or we ran a dribble handoff with Karl Anthony with you know, I don't know. Like I don't know why. Like I don't think it's one particular reason why, but it's like it's actually more frustrating when you're like, oh well, we went on this big run in third, so we know we have the abilities. Like just do it then.
Right.
Just do it.
Right.
But you know, but I like for whatever reason they can't. So I'm just like, you know what? We'll see you next year.
Listen, if you don't believe me, if you don't believe Shawn, take it from the captain himself. He said, it's not okay, but it is who we are right now. And that's who we have an opportunity to fix it. Right. He said, I don't want to say that's who we are, but it's not who we want to be. Right. So your record is who you say you are. Your record versus those teams say who you are. What you've shown is who you are right now, whether you want to be that or not. If you're out of shape, and you say, I'm not an unhealthy person, I'm an active person, but you haven't been to the gym in a month and you sit down a lot, then guess what? Right now, you're inactive. You're out of shape. You got to get in shape because your actions scream where your words whisper. You feel me? So you have to be able to match your intention with your action in order to see the results. One thing that I thought was interesting, two interesting things about that conversation, the pod. Josh Hart spoke about watching the Cavs game from home because remember, he was out for 2 games and came back against the Celtics in Boston. First of all, he cut it off after the third quarter. He was like, yeah, I ain't doing this anymore. This hurt too much. Secondly, because Shawn is talking about how if you know you have to do it, why don't you just do it? And part of what they do as players is review film. They're in film study, they lock in, they see their mistakes, and they should be able to improve based on watching yourself on the screen. If anything, any type of skill that you have that requires visual interaction, when you watch yourself, like if you want to be a better public speaker, at some point you're going to have to watch yourself. Mm-hmm. And you might feel a little cringy. You might feel uncomfortable. You might be one of those, I hate the way my voice sounds, I don't want to listen to myself people. But the only way one of the best ways you can get better is to see yourself making the mistakes and to see yourself where you shine so that you know where you have to over-index and where you have to develop more. And Hart was saying how it hit different watching on national TV and hearing the commentary and seeing it on screen to the point where he saw it and said, man, I don't want to miss another assignment. I don't want to miss a rotation. I don't want to look like that because that's not who we are. And that was he even mentioned, he was like, yo, I don't wish injury or pain on nobody, but I feel like as a team, we should watch the national game, like not film. Watch it on national TV and see how you're representing the city and representing each other. And maybe that would be the spark to wake them up. The other funny thing I saw, Shawn, is part of the interview where Brunson is talking about what they need and they have everything they need. There was a jump cut in the video where he says, well, you know, the X's and O's is an easy fix, but I feel like it's on us and we have to do better and we have what we need. We just got to put it together. So when you look at the jump cut, it feels like either the editor was a little sloppy with it or they cut out a question that was asked about the X's and O's and the schemes or whatnot. Maybe Matt asked it, I don't know. But they cut that out and then they just put JB's answer. And maybe there was a stumble, maybe somebody might have get a call. So I'll be transparent about that and I'll be fair about that. A lot of stuff happens during when you record, and especially these guys, they probably like, yo, fuck it. Just cut that and we'll just keep going. Yeah. Like I've been on that side before. It's just hilarious that a lot of this conversation has been centered around the schemes and what they're doing. And that jump cut didn't make it feel like it made it feel like it was convenient that a question was cut out. And then he just responds, well, it's an easy fix. Right. So I just thought that was interesting, not like on some conspiracy level or whatever. It's just hilarious what you notice when different things are becoming a topic of conversation.
And you know what's funny? That Josh Hart said that and then was a complete space cadet on Wednesday night.
Right.
It's like, come on, dog. Like, now listen, again, I'm not if you lose, you better not smile and you better be home and you better be shooting and you better be in the gym and, the fake mama mentality BS, whatever, right? But it's like, for whatever reason, you are not like, if you think it's solvable, then solve it. But then again, sometimes, listen, these guys are good teammates. Jalen Brunson is a good leader. Jalen Brunson is not going to throw anybody under the bus. He's never going to point any fingers at anyone. But listen, if there was something wrong schematically, he's not going to say so. But maybe there are some things wrong schematically that should be addressed. And to those people who make a living, when I say a living, I mean make it their life's work to defend the man who creates the schematics at all costs, it is okay to ask questions of the man that puts together the scheme. That doesn't mean we want punitive punishment, but it's okay to ask questions. As much as we ask questions about the rest of these other guys and the things that they're doing and not doing well.
Casual Friday Live. That's Shawn with a W. I'm Jeff J. And you RYOU. Tapping in live, tapping in on the replay in the chat, gang. We are here to talk about the New York Knicks. It's a Friday, everybody. Knicks Memphis later on today. Getting ready for that. Let's stay on this conversation. I love where we're going with it. This is a great, nuanced, open-ended conversation where we're trying to find answers. All we want is some answers. That's what we're trying to find. Let me
nuance
get brother busy.
Nuance and context. Who knew? Who knew you could have that on the internet in 2025?
Right. Because we're not... We're not being monetized to be rage baiters. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. With the monetization that we get is not to make you upset, is to try to talk about the game that we love and the teams that we love and have good conversations. So, that incentivizing 5 cents for trash takes was the death knell for social media.
Yes.
And I know the blue check was seen as a status symbol and it morphed into that other than what it was originally, verification. But yeah, I think the old system was better than the new one, guys. I'll just leave it at that. Brother Busy, what's going on? Let's get your super chats in. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate it. Who is outraged? Are we blending being critical into outrage? I think our fan base is always critical and always will be to any team that isn't champions. It's okay. It's been a while since our last. This is his first one. To that, I say I saw people on social saying that Tibbs should get fired if they get blown out again. The extremes that are happening, and yes, of course, I know it's social media. I know that's what happens. I know. I get it. I'm just saying there are some, and it may not just be fans, but there are people talking crazy on this team's name as if not being able to beat 3 teams means that you are trash.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't correlate. You could say, hey, those are tier 1 teams and you're tier 2 and we want you to be tier 1. Sure. But I've also lived in the timeline where the Knicks have beaten those tier 1 teams during the season, but still weren't called contenders. So, damned either way. I'd rather be damned with the wins versus the whoever is considered elite. But I get it. That's why I don't get too high or too low with it.
And listen, okay, one, there is outrage and there is criticism. Both things are happening. And look, and I said this, I was in a space yesterday with Uncle Brutus and State and Deej, and I was like, listen, it's okay to be pissed the hell off that you keep seeing a team get clapped by the better teams. Like, that's okay. It is all right to say, it's all right to be pissed off at that. What I will push back on is when I tell people all the time, like, listen, these are problems I don't mind having, because I remember a time where I remember being like, damn, we even make the bubble, right? So, like, try and keep it in that perspective. But yeah, there's outrage. It's okay to be It's okay to be pissed off at those things. What I also think there is, Busy, is that there is, so like, Knicks get destroyed by the Cavs and Celtics. There's a backlash, and I think what happens is then there's a backlash to the backlash of the people who have to be like, all right, they're outraged, but they don't want you to be outraged at the person that they like, whether it's a player they like or a coach they like or the GM or whoever. And then it just bubbles up and then it turns into outrage. And like, listen, like, for example, Stephen A is outraged. Do I care what Stephen A thinks? No. But guess what? A lot of people do. And a lot of people tap into what he says, and that permeates throughout the fan base. And there are people who are really, really, really pissed off. There are people who try to have these conversations with nuance and context. And there's some people that are just like, nah, they should just play better, F that. So there is outrage, and they will be critical, and we should be critical, because we don't want to, listen, we don't want to be the team on the other side of the bridge. No, we don't want to be them. We want to hold this team to the standard that we believe that they can achieve.
Exactly. And you can be critical. It doesn't mean that you can't criticize. Just say, yo, relax. Keep it in perspective, man. Do you want caviar problems or Doritos issues? Which ones do you want, right? Like, call it what it is. Thank you, Busy. Here's another one. Saw a pod where Cat was talking about how far away the practice facility is from the city and his desire for Dolan to buy something in the city. You think that has to do with player performances? No, I don't. I think it's more so a matter of convenience. I think they created the Westchester Knicks in the G League, and all those facilities were out there. And Dolan was like, "You want me to build another one? Like, what are we talking about here? Like Barclays." When Barclays was constructed, it was constructed with the Nets in mind. That's why they have they have a practice facility built in Barclays.
It's not like in Barclays, but it's somewhere downtown Brooklyn.
It is. Oh, they do have like a little.
They have a little
thing. Gym. I thought that was okay. I stand corrected. I thought that was, but it's right there in downtown Brooklyn. Like it's in close proximity to the arena. So like, put it to you like this: Mikal Bridges has a crazier commute now than he did before. Like, I can only imagine. I think he lives in Manhattan. So he got to go from Manhattan to Westchester back to Manhattan. But it's easy for him to go home. But I think for living, a lot of the Knicks, especially with families, are going to be out in Westchester and all of that anyway. So it makes sense when you think about it like that. Like, hey, if all y'all going to be living out here or in Jersey, the facility's right here. And we probably don't want you in the mix. And also, speaking for somebody who's a native New Yorker and is familiar with Manhattan, where are you going to put that facility? Like, real talk, like, where are you going to put that facility? Dykeman? Like, where are you really going to put that facility that's going to be close? What, the West Side Highway?
Yes.
Yeah,
Chelsea
right?
Piers. Chelsea Piers.
Yeah, there you go. That's the like,
or
the
Hudson
final
Yards.
frontier.
Or Hudson Yards.
Actually, they should have put that shit in Hudson Yards. Because Hudson Yards is the most vast area of property where everything you could imagine is there and nobody knows where the fuck it is.
Yo, true story.
There's a whole mall there. I don't know anybody in real life that actively goes to shop in that mall.
Yeah,
I can tell you, if you ever had anything to do, and let's say you just got caught out there and you like, damn, I don't got no clothes, like I got an interview or I got to go to an event, I just got invited, I got nothing to go, and you're in Hudson Yards, you could get a whole fit. You could get a whole nice fit. Like, they got the nicest area, they got the nicest stores around there that nobody knows about. So to Sean's point, Chelsea Piers, Hudson Yards, those are probably the two places they could put a Knicks facility. And it be logical to where they want to live.
I'll say this really quickly because I didn't think we would spend 5 minutes on the Knicks training facility, but the Knicks training facility was built in the 90s during a time where things were the focus of the bourgeoisie, for lack of a better phrase, was to have things in the suburbs. So at the time, it made sense. with the, as you know, gentrification expanded, whatever, and the focus became on having things in cities. Now you see practice facilities built in cities. You see stadiums moving back downtown, whatever. So the problem is, it's a relic from a bygone era. I think the Knicks should be like. The Knicks should practice in Manhattan and play in Manhattan, because Manhattan is a drawing card, right? With that being said, the Knicks are also 38-20. Like the trend, like the can't be like you said, Cat probably lives in like Silver Towers. I'm just making that up. I'm not doxing people.
He
right?
might still be in Jersey. I think he's with his family.
Okay, so if he's in Jersey,
which makes sense.
No, I listen. I think that dude is living in Manhattan, which I think
low key.
Manhattan.
I think he's living in a bunch of places.
But I can understand, as someone who lives in Westchester, driving between Westchester and Midtown Manhattan is annoying. So that I can get. But again, they're 38-20. So just because Jared Dudley said some trolling shit 4 or 5 years ago about this was the Knicks stink, it's like it's not the practice facility.
I will say, I do think eventually they may just build something over there as the valuation gets higher and all of that, but I don't think that's the focus of the MSG company right now. Yes. I don't think that's definitely not the focus of the MSG company right now, but I do think if you're trying to attract younger free agents and like dudes who's trying to be like in the mix, it makes sense. There's areas. I'm just saying it's a nice to have. I'd rather a better organization than a practice facility, but it is a good selling point. It's like, but in that same token, Shawn, just like hunting, house hunting or apartment hunting, or even buying a car, it might not have every amenity or every feature, but if you know, like, I'm getting about 90% of what I want, you still gonna cop.
Yeah, like the Lakers practice facility, I believe, is in El Segundo. Which is, if you've been to LA,
a lot of wallets left there.
There's not, but if you've been to LA, that is nowhere close to Staples. Nowhere close. Now, LA is a little different animal because like you got to pick your area and stay there. You just can't be crisscrossing all over the place.
Yes.
Now, yes, it's the Lakers, so their cachet, they have more cachet. But like, I've yet to see the player who says like, I would have signed with this team, but their practice facility was far. But again, I just think on principle, if you play in the city, whatever city it is, you should be able to practice there, because chances are, I mean, yes, they're gonna be some players are gonna live in the suburbs, especially guys with families. But like, listen, more often than not, you're gonna want to live in the city. I mean, listen, the Randalls had 2 children. I know their asses didn't live in freaking West Bubble. They were
talking about moving too before the trade. They were like, we need some more space, and then they went to Minnesota and was like, whoa, there's space everywhere in this motherfucker. So I get that, but let's. All right, we saw the scenic route.
Thanks,
we went to the Pacific Coast Highway. We drove down the Pacific Coast Highway, see all the scenery and whatnot. Let's get back on the I-95 that we hit the Philippines. So talking about schemes, right? Is that a vuvuzela?
Yes,
I'm sorry. Like the intrusive thoughts. What? That's a fucking vuvuzela, bro.
Shout out to my homegirl Candace, who I went to high school and college with. She was in South Africa for the 2010. You know Candace.
Yeah.
She was in South Africa for the 2010 World Cup, and I was like, bring me back a vuvuzela. And she did. So it always stays here. Thank you for noticing. It only took you 4 years.
Yeah, right. Yo, dog, I know you know what it is. The way you angle your camera, I never seen past Flacco and Bon Jovi. That was cut off. That's why I never saw it. That's why I looked up and I was like, it wouldn't. I tried to make my point and it was like vuvuzela. I was hearing the that's all I kept hearing in my head. That's all I kept hearing in my head. All right, so let's talk about schemes. Tibbs made a little bit of a fervor, if you will, had a little bit of a brouhaha built on Knicks Twitter when he spoke about Mitchell Robinson and his potential return. And when he was asked about Mitchell Robinson and how they was integrating him back and just like their performance with him versus without him, He says, we've gone 50-something games without our starting center. Guys have done a really good job stepping in. Could we do better? I always believe we could do better. Now, Tibbs was saying that Mitch was the projected starting center. And this caused a commotion because it implies that your starting five was not the starting five that you imagined, even after the trades and all of that, when you got your final team. This was not the starting five that was projected, that he was a part of the starting five that you projected, and now he wasn't there. So that implies that this starting five that you've been going with was not the final starting five or the starting five you had in mind, which means you had to mix and match, you had to tinker, you had to kind of innovate with what you had to see what was the best option. To which a lot of Knicks fans were like, well, why didn't you try more stuff? And of course, was again 38-20, but they're 38-20, right? But especially against these top elite teams, you had more of a room for experimentation if this is not what your projected envisioned starting lineup was. Mm-hmm. Now you contrast that with Mark Daignault, where he was talking about how relevant opposing personnel is when he plays two bigs. Like basically, this has been like the hot button topic amongst Knicks fans about matching personnel. Do you just do what you do well? Do you mix and match? Like what's the stratagem behind that? And Mark says it's irrelevant right now, to be honest with you. Maybe in the second half of games, those two guys are our two best players. Part of my job is to get our best players on court. We're in the early stage of understanding that. Has it been perfect? No. Maybe some of the personnel we're facing has challenged it, but I think that's good for us. It would be irresponsible of us to not know everything there is to know about every part of our team. That quote hit like a 100 kill streak in Call of Duty or Knicks Twitter, because it kind of encapsulated what a lot of folks have been talking about in terms of Tibbs's, I guess, inability to mix and match within the season without having to see a large sample size, or at least just trying something or trying things too late. We spoke about scheme, Shawn. What do you think about that?
So what DJ Zulo said in the Cavs post game has, and I told him this last night in the town hall, which again, if you're not a patron, you should be a patron. $11 a month. You spend more or less.
As a fact.
What he said that, like, he said that, you know, he likes the coach. He thinks the coach has done a good job, but there are certain things that he values that maybe he should not value as much. And I think sometimes, listen, every coach has things they value over others. Every coach. Like, if you think, like, for the Fire Tips crowd, like, if you think you bring, like, no matter what coach you bring in, that coach is going to do something that you're going to be like, why is he doing this, right? But I think that there's something to the effect of, this is how we do things, and you may not be good at it now, but you'll be good at it at the end of the season, because we're going to keep doing it until you get it right. Like, if you bend at the first sign of adversity, or the first time like a player doesn't do what you wanted to do, so you switch it up, like, you are not worth your weight in salt. At the same time, you have responsibility to put all of your players in the best position to succeed, right? And I don't know if playing Josh Hart and Precious Achiuwa against the Boston Celtics is putting your players in the best position to succeed. Now, at the same time, if you look at the amount of players that we have left, maybe Tibbs doesn't really have a choice but to play those two guys, because our bench isn't that strong to begin with. But I think there is something to, like, I will always remember against the Laker game, in that second Laker game at MSG this season, where I think OG got into foul trouble. It's either OG or Bridges. I think it was OG got into foul trouble.
Was that before OG got hurt?
Yes, this is before he got hurt. And basically, the first sub off the bench for that game was not Deuce McBride. It was not Campaign. It was Landry Shaman. And I think we're all like, why is he putting Landry Shaman? I remember standing next to Benji, and I said to Benji, you know why he's putting in Landry Shaman, right? Because of size. And he was like, Shawn, Landry Shaman does not count as size. I'm like, yes, you're right. He does not count as size. However, in the mind of Tom Thibodeau, he is, because he knew he would need size against that Laker team, because that's still an AD and still Jackson Hayes and still LeBron, whatever. He's like, I'm gonna need size. I'm gonna need size, and this guy is taller than that guy. The same way how we'll always remember RJ Barrett's last game as a Knick, where he comes in for IQ because IQ fouled Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tibbs is like, well, I'm gonna go with 6'6" RJ over 6'3" IQ, right? So at the end of the day, everyone has their principles, everyone has their values, and I think at some point, listen, it's very possible that Tibbs has things in his back pocket that he's waiting for the playoffs to show that he's using the season as an 82-game experiment. But at the same time, we also know this is a guy that wants to win every single game. So are you doing the things that can help you win every single game? It's an internal struggle. Ultimately, I think that's more often than not him wanting to win every game. When you want to win every game, I've said on multiple platforms, when the shit hits the fan, you don't rise to the occasion, you stick to your level of training. And if Tibbs is trying to win a game, he's going to stick to what he knows, to what he believes in his heart. And I said it last night, like, Tibbs can change, but Tibbs has to be backed into a corner with a gun at his head, and your other hand around his neck is like, all right, you know what? I'm going to bench Evan Fournier, and we're going to switch it up. So at the end of the day, look, if Tibbs can go about coaching this team, and I don't want to make this a Tibbs rant because it's not really a Tibbs rant. Tibbs can go about coaching the team any way he wants. It just better fucking work. Because if it doesn't work, like if you get clapped, let me ask you this question really quick, and then
yes,
Jeff. What if, let's say the Knicks make the second round and they get destroyed in 5 games? Like, they go down 3-0, they win game 4 home and stay face, they go back to TD Jake Center, get destroyed, and they're out, right?
A gangster and a gentleman sweep?
Yes.
They need a gangster and a gentleman sweep. That means that game 6, they got to go out. Like, they can't get blown out in game 5. I need a gangster and a gentleman sweep. If it's a regular gentleman sweep?
It's a gentleman sweep. And it's a gentleman sweep, again, like, they are down 25 every game. They're down 25 games, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Game 4, game 4 was like, game 3 against
the confetti game?
The confetti game. Yes. Let's say that happens. Is Tom Thibodeau the coach next year?
What odds are you giving me? What odds are you giving me?
So funny, this question came up last night, and John was like, you'd have to give me 10-1. So John actually thinks that if that happens, he won't be back. I actually think he will be back.
So 10-1 that he will be back, or that's what John wanted?
No. John is saying that, like, he thinks that for him to, like, if that scenario plays out, for him to bet that the coach would be back, he'd have to get 10-1 odds.
All right. So he need plus 1,000 to bet that. Yeah. You gotta give me plus money. You gotta at least give me even money. I will say that. I think that's fair. Because
so you think he'll be back? If you think he will be, you think if that scenario plays out, he gets fired?
I think there's a better chance that Thibodeau doesn't come back if they lose in the first round than if they get smacked like that in the second.
If you lose in the first round, it's goodbye.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. And we've had this conversation a bunch of times on air, off air. I want Tibbs to win a ring. I think I want him to win a ring more than the players, because somebody who dedicates their whole life to a craft and they've been good. I mean, he has a ring with the Celtics, so that's cool. But I mean, as a head coach, yes, I want him to win a ring because I like to see that dedication and a certain standard of excellence pay off, because, everybody's mid until they win. And then, the Jokic, and that's another thing when we talk about narratives and perspectives. Remember, I'm old enough to remember that they were talking about break up Brown and Tatum.
Dog.
I'm old enough to remember they said Jokic, remember the whole Euro slander, the whole Euro slander, and how he wasn't good enough on defense to win. I remember that. Right. I remember that. Listen, Luka Doncic is being treated like a degenerate. They have to leak. That trade was so what the fuck levels of bad that they had to leak that this man, they basically called him Hookah Doncic. They said the Hookah Doncic shit was him living the gimmick.
Yo, son, he was like, they
said he's really Hookah Doncic.
They said Luka's literally be like,
yeah, that he drinks beers and smokes hookah, and you don't think the rest of America's like same?
And
that he's one of us?
And he drinks Henny.
And he drinks Henny, right. Remember what we used to say, Shawn? The way that people used to slander the Knicks. If the Knicks traded for 1993 Michael Jordan, they would say he's a degenerate gambler who's addicted to Hennessy and he won't amount to anything in New York. That's the type of narratives that used to be about the Knicks. Like real rap. Like this is what I'm talking about. If they they put narratives on you, and it's crazy how this is the beauty of sports. The fact that you can supersede any narrative over you if you win. Anything. You're a loser until you won. They was talking about Jordan the same way. Yep. They was talking about Jordan. There was a narrative where he basically was empty stats. Like that was pretty much where they were going with him. All that high flying, chain wearing, 63 points in a loss dropping. That looks good, but you ain't gonna be nothing as long as the Celtics and the Pistons are around. Like they're like these are the type of narratives, but you have to win to overcome the narrative. So that's why I'm rooting for Tips, and I'm rooting for the Knicks as an organization and as a fan, because you win one and they can't really say nothing to you. Mm-hmm. You can't, especially in this era. You win one, they cannot say nothing to you. They can talk about what you were, but they have to also talk about what you are. Right. So that to your question, I think first round, Peace take me out with a fader. Second round,
I think he'll be back no matter what.
I like they're gonna say it was year one. They're gonna say it was year one. I mean, if Doc could get another year with all the stuff on his name, like all the detractors and what they have to say. I think he's at least earned one more year. I think it would be knee jerk to fire him unless they completely shut down. Like it's like demoralizing. Then like zero competitive. Then it is what it is. But that's also a family atmosphere up there.
Yes,
and they take care of their people. And they would do it. They're going to take careful consideration before they pull any type of trigger like that.
I agree. And what I would say is that what I would say about that is that if the gentleman's sweep scenario happens and they get their ass kicked, I think Tibbs will be back, but the seat will be very hot. And you know what they can do? They can't be on this starting 4-5 bullshit again, or starting like 9-9, because they'd be like, "Yo, get him out of here."
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. Here's one thing. You was gonna say something, or
no,
I was gonna keep going. All right. Negative 141 point differential between the Knicks and the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder. Negative 63 between the Knicks, negative 35 versus the Thunder, which is really, it stinks because that one blowout skewed the numbers, but it is what it is. And minus 43 versus the Cavs, which once again, they lost by 6 in the Garden and then got smoked in Cleveland. So there's credence to it's probably more competitive than we think, but what have you done for us lately? And what you've done for us lately is get smacked in 3 straight games against these teams, right? Like that, it is what it is. Like that's just what it is, right? So I think that's where you have to factor that into play. Knicks are still 5th in point differential. They're still 2nd in offensive rating, according to Clean and Glass, or 3rd if you look at NBA stats that doesn't filter out garbage time, right? The other thing that I will say is I've heard a lot of data. Like the data has been overwhelming in a bunch of different directions when it comes to this team. I think there's one thing that I see with them that is of note. Their current starting five that's supposed to be optimized for shooting threes is in the 19th percentile of 3-point shooting. To put this into a characteristic, last year, the starting five of Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, Randall, and Mitchell Robinson, which is effectively 1.5, I'll say, non-shooters. And even Hart, 23-24, Hart was not gunning like that, right? Like not until the playoffs. He wasn't gunning like that. They were in the 99th percentile of 3-point shooting. They were shooting 49.5% of their shots were from three, as opposed to this year where it's 32. So almost a 15%, actually 15+% drop. Put it into further context. I can give you any type of lineup with iHart and Josh Hart. The Harts was shooting over 40%. Even the older lineups with Quickly and Randall and Hart and Mitch Robb, 41%. You have to get down to like, and surprise, surprise, Deuce McBride is in a bunch of those lineups where they're shooting 39+%. Mm-hmm. So if you've optimized your team to be excellent on offense, but now you're not taking as many threes, which I'm not advocating for them to be the Celtics. It's just maximizing the opportunities that you get. You don't go 3 for 2 in your offenses when you're down, like those type of things. Like they're optimized to take way more threes than they're taking right now. So that's one area where I'm looking at them. Despite all of that, they're still top 3, top 2 in offense. So imagine if they were able to unlock that. The other thing that's clear is when you look at on-off numbers and the points given up on defense, Brunson and Hart are among the top 2, and low-key Precious Achiuwa. They're among the top 3 of players who are giving up more on the court than they are off. Like it's like -6, -5, right? And they're in the lower percentile. So I think that there has been the expectation of the defense from the wings versus the reality. There's been slippage. There's been slippage, and it hasn't lived up to it. The last thing that I got is the top 6 lineups that the Knicks have, where they're positive point differential, positive on offense, they include Deuce. They include Deuce. And that's the thing. I am there's so many analogies I could use for this. But as somebody who has a scientific background and sometimes rails against science because people use numbers without context, because numbers don't lie, but you can tell them whatever you want them to tell somebody else. Yeah, exactly. Right? So the way people have used analytics, and I feel like how certain players kind of died on the cross for the analytical movement, and they talk about them like they were trash, when I think there's a better appreciation for different types of players from the past than there are now. Off soapbox. Looking at what we can see, because you see what I see. Looking at what I see versus and looking at the numbers and melding the two. Certain stuff is undeniable. And if you have a guy who's putting up shots, you don't have like the Devo that has the quick trigger. You don't have that anymore. Yeah. So you putting up shots with Deuce. You have this now. These are the type of adjustments I think they got to make, Shawn, in order to freshen up the offense, or at least against them 3 teams, you got to do something else.
Yeah. You got to do something else. Like, I think so. One of the things that Rudy Gobert is very good at in Minnesota is setting screens for Cat to get threes. Precious Achiuwa is not that in terms of setting screens. Like, Rudy Gobert is arguably the best screen setter in the league as a big. That'll be interesting to see when Mitch comes back. If they play those double big lines, we see more of that. Although historically, Mitch's screening has left something to be desired. But yeah, like some like player best. You know, I remember last year against Indiana in Game 5. That's when Tibbs he started to put Deuce in the starting lineup, and then we beat Indiana's ass. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, it was like, well, now, yeah, we're up 3-2, but now Rick Carlisle has a chance to counter it, And if he counters it in game 6, then he's going to have a counter to use in game 7. So you don't necessarily want to go to it right then and there, like go to it in game 60, because now you're giving teams 20 games to figure it out. And listen, there are trade-offs. Like all these suggestions that we have, there are trade-offs. I had a tweet, and I actually retweeted it. I replied to the tweet that we put out that's promoting this episode of Casual Friday. And it says, let's have a dialogue. And the tweet is a video of a number of possessions from the first Knicks Celtics game last season with a healthy Mitch and a healthy Isaiah Hartenstein and his Kristaps Porzingis cooking us. And the point was not to denigrate Isaiah Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson as defenders, but the point was to show that, hey, listen, we had defenders better than what we have now that Boston was able to take advantage of. So like when you like Mitch will help, don't get me wrong, but it also creates another set of issues. Like playing Deuce McBride will solve one issue, but not but may create another. Having Josh Hart come off the bench for Deuce McBride, it's like, all right, now you have no shooting coming off the bench. It's hard. They don't have as much pull-up three-point shooters as they did last year. It's harder for this team to create three-point shooters, which is why to create three-point shooting opportunities, which is why when they're open, they need to take them. I'm looking at you, number 3 for the New York Knicks. Stop letting teams guard you with a center like your name is Tony Allen in 2016. Let that shit fly. I don't care if you go 0-10. Let it fly.
I agree. Like that, watching some of those Celtic possessions, I was like, yo, Josh. At what point do you look at them and say, I get it. You the servant. Katie didn't want that nickname. You take it. You the servant. Your job is to augment and amplify what the rest of the offense does. But at some point, the offense has to look at you like, yo, man, they're violating. Put it up. Like you saw when they put him in action every single play, something good happened. Because now we're going to force you to make a decision with guarding. Yes. Like, and I think that's what you have to do. And you saw what happened to the Sixers when they picked their poison with Josh. They ain't survive. They didn't survive. And he hit clutch shots. And he hit timely shots. So that's the type of offense they're going to need if he is going to occupy that starting role. Along with Mikal stepping up, OG stepping up. I had a comment from Joyless Division on Blue Sky who said, why does OG look 50 years old out there? Is it his foot, or should we really start to worry? Shawn, you remember back in the day when D Brown came back from the offseason looking like The Rock? Like you could tell he didn't do nothing. He didn't play ball over the season. All he did was lift. That man came back ready to challenge for the Intercontinental title. And his shot, it was crazy. His shot was off because he was too strong. He was looking like Anthony Mason out there. And his shot was just too strong. I feel like OG might have a little bit too much weight on him. He might have put like a lot of weight in the offseason and like muscle. He might have too much. He might have to get a little bit leaner so that he can move. He's also not the most nimble person. He's not the most, agile person. So that's another thing that you got to take into account with OG. I don't think the foot, anytime OG jumps or falls, I wince. So it's whatever, but I don't think it's the foot, not at this point. I just think he's just moving a little bit slower and he's going to have to get in a little bit better shape. What do you think? How do you think Mitch is going to impact this offense?
Offensively, we'll get some goddamn offensive rebounds. That'll help. I mean, defensively, we know how it's going to affect. Like, he was the best offensive rebounder in the league. The rim protection will improve, whatever. Like, but offensively, like I said, I think the offensive rebound, again, you put one thing on the table, you take another thing off. The offensive rebounding should actually help create more threes, point opportunities. Because DJ was saying last night, like, it wasn't DJ. It was John was saying that, like. No, it was Benji. I forget who. We have a lot of smart people at KFS, but they're talking about how it was Benji. The most efficient 3-point shot comes after a offensive rebound because somebody's less defense. Yeah, right. So I think that will help the offense. Hopefully, if he can play more than 3 weeks in a row. Please, Mitch. Knock on wood.
And shout out to Ariel Hukporti, man. He did well as a
Yeah.
starter. I hate to see him tearing his meniscus and whatnot. Hopefully he's ready. He's ready for the postseason run. I know he's probably wasn't going to get a lot of run anyway, but it just sucks in your first start you get injured. And he was out there active. Like he was active. He was a net positive, banging with Andre Drummond and those guys. So yeah, man. Speedy recovery to Hukporti for sure. And shout out to Dirty Dancer in the chat. You're right. KD did want that nickname. He did want that. That was the nickname he actually did want.
Yes.
But Hart has claimed it. So let me get to the super chats before we get out of here. Andrew Claudio, definitely don't think it hurts performance. 38 and 20, but the practice facility being the same commute time from MSG as Nassau Coliseum is definitely a thing that annoys the players /staff /media. That's insane.
That's nuts.
That's insane. Distance wise, that's insane. Yeah. You know what? Busy? Yeah. I switched parties, bro. Like, yeah, like, no, that is kind of insane. They have to do something about that because it's crazy. Like, even if, because the players who want to live in the suburbs are going to live in the suburbs regardless. Like that is the trade-off that they make living farther out. Like you've assumed that, but just on average, like that is wild because it's like someone like Mikal, it might work out for you if you live in the city and you live like close to MSG because you got to go all the way to Tarrytown, practice. Then you probably take your car or whatever back to your crib. And then you just in there until whatever time, like 3-4 o'clock, you got to be at MSG. So I probably I could see the pros and cons, but yeah, that joint got to be closer. It got to be closer, bro.
Yeah.
Andrew Claudio again, the Randalls ... hopefully rented in Minnesota. That's crazy. Well, yeah. Well, we had this conversation. I had this conversation actually with Benji and or Jeremy. It might have been both. I just did it too. It might have been it was what are y'all capologists number folk in KFS? We were just having a general conversation about Randall, and I said, "Yo, he's going to opt into his contract. He's going to pick up his player option." Like I thought about it when people were like, "Oh, he's going to be a free agent, blah blah blah," and I was like, "No, he has a player option. He's going to opt into that." So if they don't want him, they're going to have to trade him, and it's going to be contract year Randall. So. That might be great. That might be great for Minnesota for either for the standings or for potential trade value. Shawn, we got Memphis tonight. We got the Warriors. We got the Lakers, and we have the Heat. We got the Heat on Sunday. Grizzlies tonight. Warriors on Tuesday, and then the West Coast road trip starts up with the Lakers on Thursday. What do you think? What are you thinking for this road trip? This road / last of the home series?
I would say for those 4 games, I would say, okay, so let's see. Memphis, Miami, Golden State, LA. I will say 3-1. And I'll say this is why. I think I think we can beat Memphis. I think Miami stinks. Golden State's at home, but for Golden State, that they will be on a back-to-back in their 3rd game in 4 nights. I think we beat them. And then we go to LA and we tend to clap the Lakers in LA. So I'm gonna go on a limb and say 3-1.
I like that. Yeah. I don't know what to expect with the Heat. The Heat are the most randomized choose your fighter ass team that is in the East because they could wake up one day and cook and the other day stink. I do expect the 3-1. I feel like Memphis is looking for revenge. Like they got smoked in the Garden. So I could see John them wanting to return the favor. Right. So, of course, Memphis is 4th in point differential. The Knicks are 5th. So if the Knicks beat them, it doesn't mean anything because they're not one of the top 3 teams in the league by whatever common logic. They're average. 86.7 is average. Whatever, man. Top 5 record in your average. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I like that record 3-1 as well. Before we get out of here, Andrew Claudio, one more. Thank you, brother. Follow up to my first question. Are the Suns the Jets of the NBA? And I will say no, because KD played a whole season. In his first season, he played enough games to where he wouldn't be Aaron Rodgers. And I don't think, I don't know. I think it's, I don't think it's a good one-to-one analogy, but if they had traded, like if Lazard was the one who tanked the season, then maybe I would say but
the answer
or
is
Devontae.
Yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, by the way.
Why you say that?
Devontae is Bradley Beal.
Aaron that's Rodgers, what I was gonna say. Is he?
Aaron Rodgers is Kevin Durant.
Who's
Matt
Booker? Garrett Wilson?
Yeah.
Booker's Garrett Wilson?
No, that's a diss to Devin Booker.
Oh, Quincy.
And Matt Ishbia is Woody Johnson, who coming back from his ambassadorship. He's like, hey, I'm back. Let's do some cool stuff. Yeah, they're the Jets of the NBA. They're disappointing. I just want to say that I called this Jets disappointment, and Mensa and Andrew called me crazy. More Mensa than Andrew. I kind of know what I'm talking about. Please go draft Shedeur Sanders and go fix all of this. All right.
I hope that doesn't happen for the Jets. The news that Matt Stafford is unlikely warms my soul. Please,
Matt
guys.
Stafford's gonna look good as silver and black.
Please, guys, please. All right, y'all. That does it for Casual Friday. Thank you so much for tapping in live with us. That is Shawn. I'm Jeff. Chat, you've been amazing. Replay gang, tap in, get your comments in. The Knicks play tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. And yeah, this conversation is going to continue. It's going to be a great season. I would just say enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride and keep your critiques heavy, but don't lose sight of the bigger picture. That's all I can say. Like, fan how you fan, but it'll be a peaceful fanning experience if you do that. That's at least what I think. So this is Casual Friday. This is the Knicks Film School YouTube channel. Like this video if you love what you're hearing. Subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Share this with all your NBA fans, your Knicks fans. They know we have dope conversations on here. So subscribe and join the party. All right? That does it for Casual Friday. Go ahead, Shawn. What you got to say? You are muted, my brother. Damn it!
Shame about the Arsenal. Do. Shame about the Arsenal.
Oh, man.
Jameer,
oh, man.
We got an Arsenal fan. You talking in the thing. Second place again. Ole. I got to go. I'm out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Pep, we loved you until we did it. Talk to y'all later. Casual Friday. Go Knicks.